Okay, I'm going to share my experience with contact cheating over the last 2 years. When I joined CQUniversity, I got 1 unit, and at the end of the term, I was horrified when I saw all the assessment tasks have been advertised in many contact cheating websites, and it was a very astonishing experience. And I started to look at literature and how can we go about contact cheating and what are the good practices in this regard. And I tried to accommodate certain proposals. I continued to improve some practices, and I ended up with a model that I wanted to share with you today. So, but this presentation, as yesterday, it is a bit interactive. So if you don't mind, if you can go to your phone or you open a new tab in your browser and try to go to menti.com. I'll just give you the instructions here. You go to menti.com and then you can use a code 546678. And then you'll be able to connect to the slides, and you can see at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a thumb up button. So you can just click on it to show that you have already connected. I got 2 questions, one at the beginning and one at the end. I will start with asking you a question about your experience with contact cheating, and then we ended up trying to evaluate the practice that I have adopted and see your opinion about it. So let's see. So now we have 3 connected. We got 33 in the room, so it's a good number actually. We can get a couple more, and this is the first question. Again, the code 546678. So I got the first question for you. So what's your experience with student engaging in contact cheating as an educator? Is it always or most often the case in your units, or sometimes, rarely, or never? It's good to see that you are very fortunate actually that you don't have contact cheating, most of you, which is great. But like it depends on the assessment task that you have and the discipline. So in our experience, it was quite overwhelming experience where students are required to do summative tasks and they end up with being exposed to contact cheating activities. And that was quite overwhelming to us as educators. But contact cheating is just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many problems associated with our way of approaching assessment tasks. So, when we have an assessment task that is actually, maybe has more weight than other formative tasks, you will find students having lack of confidence that they can actually get good marks. And if the assessment is not personalized enough, if it is not engaging enough, students will not be stimulated and they will be more prone to contact cheating activities. And one problem that we face with students is that they always miss the boat when they get feedback at the end of the term and there is no hope for them to go back and correct their assignments. And that doesn't actually help them attain the learning outcomes at the end of the day, which make all of them more vulnerable to contact cheating activities. So I thought about that a lot, and I have consulted literature, and I came up with a model that can address this problem. So mainly I'm talking about any assessment task that you have, which is like a main assessment. You can break it down into subtasks. And then you need to embed self and peer assessment to make it more authentic and personalized to all students and try to maximize the attainment of learning outcomes. And you should have a graded assessment regime where both assessment tasks should be graded. So it's not only the case that you ask students to peer evaluate others, but you should also grade that. And then you should give time between the first assessment and final assessment so students can actually accommodate the feedback that they receive during the self and peer assessment. And you need to grade whether or not they have incorporated the feedback that they got. To show you how I have done that in our example, so I got a research and project management unit for Master of Project Management students at CQUniversity, and the assessment itself is personalized and authentic. It should be, where you ask them to come up with a unique research proposal. Everyone has its own topic, and they work on certain projects related to project management discipline. So we give them certain topics and we ask them to generate research questions. So everyone will end up with a very unique research question that they have to address in their research proposal. And what I have done, so if the assessment task is 100%, so I split that into two tasks. One is the draft proposal, and you can say 30% of the weight, and one is the final proposal. And you can play with the weighting depending on your unit. And you need to allow time between the first one and the last one. So you got week 9 and week 12. So within week 10, for example, they will be able to get some feedback and try to reflect on that and improve their final proposal. And with the draft proposal part, you ask students to submit that into an automated process for self-and peer assessment. And if you use Moodle, I think you are fortunate because it has a great plugin called Workshop that I will show you in a minute. And so what does that do when you do self-and peer assessment? So students will receive 2 grades, one for the quality of the submissions as graded in the self-and peer assessment, and one for the quality of grading itself. So you also grade your peer, but your grading itself will be marked, whether or not it was good enough and it actually compares with others who have also evaluated that student. So once students got that, every single student will end up with a lot of feedback from the self-assessment, from the peer assessment, and you could possibly ask the tutors if you have time and commercial aspects are being considered. It does allow you to consider marking by tutors. You can add that as well and get students to have more informative and valuable feedback from their faculty. So once you are done with that, students will be required to incorporate all these comments in the final proposal. And you need to allow something for compliance statement where students will show you all the feedback that they received and how they have actually incorporated that feedback into their final assessment. And that will actually deter many students from, they possibly purchase the draft assessment, but they will be required to do a lot of work in class for self and peer assessment in the first place, and then they have to incorporate the comments. And that will make it more difficult for them to go back to the contract sheeting websites and try to accommodate their needs as well. And then you allow the final mark for the quality of the final report that students have done. The tricky part is how to use technology with regard to self and peer assessment. And there is plenty of tools available in different universities. At CQUniversity, we use Moodle as an LMS system. And in that one, we have something called a Workshop plugin. And it's a very handy and easy user-friendly tool that I have used over the last 2 years and was quite effective. And it doesn't engage you a lot and doesn't consume a lot of time and effort from you as a coordinator. And what you can do, you can just use the plugin, and this is the way how you configure it, where you got 5 stages. The first one is setup phase, where you put exactly what you are asking students to do and the instructions for submissions, and you put some rubric for students to use for their evaluation. And you may also give them an example submission, like what quality we're looking for. You can give them like HD example or maybe a past example. But I usually don't like to do that because students will actually go and follow the HD one and try to manipulate their assessment accordingly. So I didn't feel that the example would be beneficial for students, especially postgraduates. So once you're done with that, you start asking students, you move to the next stage, which is the submission phase, where students you allocate them, and when you allocate randomly, and it will be anonymous, completely anonymous, and this may all help you, Christina, with regard to dyslexia issue. And all students will not be exposed to others with regard to names because it will be completely anonymous. Their names will be removed from the assessment tasks, and they will be asked not to mention their names or anything that would identify them to peers or maybe faculty. It depends actually on what you are trying to do. And once you are done with that, so students will start to make submissions, and then you go to the next assessment or the next phase, which is the assessment, where students will start to self and peer assess others. So everyone will get 1 or 2 assessments depending on the way that you put, and they have to do that in class. And that would be quite useful and effective to deter students from engaging contract cheating agencies. And then once you get all of that done, you go to the last one, which is fully automated, and you grade students. So the quality is mainly, every student will get 2 grades. One for the quality of the submission, which is the average of what they have got.
That's 10 minutes, Sama.
Yeah, I'm almost done. And one is the quality of their grading. And the way how it is comparing, it is looking at the majority of those who have actually given the grade and compares to others who have give less grades. So if you have 3 people who have actually graded it, 9, 9, and 7, so those who were very close to 9 will get full mark actually for grading, because it is unanimously agreed that this could be the high quality thing. And then you close it with certain remarks, and this is how I have incorporated that in one of the units, PPMP 20015 at CQUniversity, and then you provide conclusive remarks, reflection of what you have seen with the students, and this is the way how you get the marks. You get 1 mark for the submission and 1 mark for the assessment, and it was quite effective. So we tested that over 2 years, and the feedback that I got from students on their learning experience. So I just give you a few seconds to read through that. And the feedback was, we asked them about the feedback, whether it was effective or not, and you can see the vast majority were saying that we strongly agree that the feedback has helped us to learn, which was quite pleasing to see. And I like the way that draft assignment has really helped them, because they have the opportunity to correct their mistakes before it is too late. So they don't miss the boat, and they feel that they are more confident and they are up to it, and definitely they will be less prone to contract cheating activities. So this regime may not actually address contract cheating completely, because still students can go to contract cheating websites and get some help, but it can actually deter them, because it will be more stimulating and engaging experience, and more students will feel that they can do the work.
That's 12 minutes.
Yes. So if you go back to your phone, and this is the proposal that I have come up with, this is my experience in the last 2 years. What do you think about this proposal? If you go back to your phone again, this is a code, and you will find the scaling question, Likert scale, 1 to 7. What do you think about the proposal? Does it really help stimulate engaged students? Will that deter vulnerability, contract cheating? Will that enhance attainment of learning outcomes? And whether or not you will be considering this approach in your unit? It would be great to have your opinion on this. And I'm done with that, Celeste, so over to you.
Thanks very much, Sama. While everyone is completing the final Menti rating, if you've got any questions, please either raise your hand or type it into the group chat. Sama, it's probably the length of the presentation. It's not quite long enough to delve into the detail of the assessment type that you've got there, but one of the questions that I had was just in relation to assessing the quality of the peer feedback. Now, you've done that quantitatively, but do you do that qualitatively? Like, is there, like, how do you assess the feedback that the peers are giving, even if it's consistent in numbers? How do you assess the moderation? Thanks, Vicky. That's the question I've got. The moderation of the marks. How do you confirm that?
This is a very excellent question. So we have left a mark in the entity profile that all grading will be randomly moderated by the tutors. So if we have very large class, it is so difficult to go and assess every grading that students have done. So we have said that randomly we're going to select a batch of students who have done the grading and look at the constructive comments that they have given. So this is the qualitative approach that we have used. So we told students that the grade that you have given, if it is not informative and the feedback that you give to others is not constructive and valuable enough, you may get a decrease in your mark. And that's something that you can do in your unit when you ask students, but you should tell students in the first place that their feedback will be moderated and their mark will be affected if they are found not to give constructive feedback. And that's why we ask tutors sometimes to go and give feedback as well, because we need that to be enriching experience to everyone. Because high achieving students have complained that they didn't get very valuable experience from low achievers. And that's why I was actually forced to ask my tutors to look at the reports and try to give some feedback as well.
And Vicky's actually expanded on that question. She's asking, how do you teach how to do the self-and peer assessment during the course? Do you show the students how to do the peer part of it?
Definitely. So at the beginning of the term, we tell them that this is assessment task, and we train them on how to do that. Sometimes we give them an example from a different discipline just to show them how to use the rubric and how to start the assessment. We try to encourage them by showing them the value of doing self and peer assessment based on the literature that we have seen, and how that would make them more stimulated and attaining of learning outcomes. So we should actually train tutors as well as students, and we can do that in tutorial classes. You don't need to do that in the lectures, because I use that in my unit in the computer lab. So if you don't have computer labs, you can ask students to bring their own devices, and you go from there. So yeah, I think it is a success factor that you need to train students before you introduce that workshop to them.
Thanks very much, Sama. I can see that Ali, you have your mic open. Did you have a question?
Oh, no, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. No worries. I thought you might have been ready to ask the question.